utterly silent. The usual rustle of papers, the whispering of reporters, and the hum of background noise all seemed to stop as everyone absorbed his words. For Jasmine, her father's testimony was a profound moment of support. It reminded her that her fight was not just political, it was personal, rooted in family and legacy. Karoline's expression changed. The smirks and sideways glances disappeared, replaced by a look of introspection. The joke that had once seemed harmless now felt heavier, more serious. After Mr. Crockett finished, he took his seat. The judge thanked him and called for a brief recess. In the hallway outside the courtroom, reporters whispered that Jasmine's father had stolen the show. Many political analysts agreed. The testimony brought a new, human dimension to the trial. It was no longer just about words on a stage or legal definitions. It was about empathy, understanding, and the real-life impact of careless remarks. Back inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was different. The jurors looked more thoughtful. The lawyers from both sides approached their arguments with renewed caution. Jasmine's father had reminded everyone present that behind every public figure is a family, a history, and a person striving to make a difference. That day, the courtroom witnessed something rare, the power of a quiet voice, standing firm in the face of controversy, commanding respect without raising its volume. The rest of the trial would continue, but no one could forget the impact of that testimony. The impact of quiet strength. After Jasmine's father's powerful testimony, the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted noticeably. What had been a tense, adversarial setting suddenly carried a weight of reflection and respect. It was as if his calm, honest words had pierced through the political posturing and reminded everyone present of the human side of the conflict. Karoline Leavitt, who had once been confident and even playful during the trial, now appeared more guarded. The humor she had used to deflect criticism was noticeably absent. Behind closed doors, advisors warned her about the growing public backlash and how the father's testimony was turning the tide against her. Outside the courtroom, the media coverage took on a new tone. News anchors and political commentators revisited the case with a fresh perspective. Many acknowledged that the father's words had reframed the issue. It was no longer just about a joke or free speech, but about the respect owed to public servants, especially those from marginalized communities. Social media was buzzing too. Supporters of Jasmine Crockett praised her father's dignity and strength. They shared clips of his testimony and spoke about how his quiet presence had spoken louder than any legal argument. Karoline's supporters were quieter now. Some called for a more measured approach, urging her to apologize and move forward. Others feared the joke had cost her credibility and influence. In the days following the testimony, Karoline made a surprising decision. She scheduled a press conference to publicly address the controversy. This was unusual. Politicians and officials rarely admit fault so openly, especially in such a high-profile case. Standing before the cameras and reporters, Karoline looked serious. She began by acknowledging the mistake she had made. "I realize now that what I said was hurtful and disrespectful," she said. "My words did not reflect the respect I have for Representative Crockett or the important work she does. I apologize to her, her family, and anyone who was hurt by my comments." Her apology was direct and heartfelt. Many saw it as a turning point, a moment of accountability that Washington sorely needed. Jasmine accepted the apology publicly but also reminded everyone why the issue mattered. "Respect is the foundation of our democracy," she said in a statement. "This moment is not just about me, it's about creating a political culture where everyone, regardless of background, is treated with dignity." The courtroom case itself soon moved toward a settlement. Both parties agreed to resolve the lawsuit outside of court, focusing instead on the lessons learned. For Karoline, the experience was humbling. The trial and the public response forced her to reflect deeply on her role. Not just as a spokesperson but as a representative of power and influence. She began to speak more thoughtfully about the importance of respectful discourse in politics. For Jasmine, the outcome was a reaffirmation of her commitment to public service and the communities she represented. The trial had been difficult, but it strengthened her resolve to fight for fairness and respect in all areas of government. Ultimately, the story of the joke, the courtroom drama, and the father's quiet strength became more than a legal case. It became a symbol of how empathy, dignity, and accountability can change even the toughest conflicts. And it reminded everyone watching that sometimes, the most powerful voices are not the loudest, but the ones that speak with truth and quiet courage. A lesson learned. The courtroom battle between Karoline Leavitt and Representative Jasmine Crockett may have ended with a legal settlement, but the effects of the case rippled far beyond the walls of the courthouse. This was more than a political spat, it had become a powerful story about respect, responsibility, and the influence of words in public life. In the days following the settlement, conversations across Washington, and indeed across the country, focused on what the case represented. Many political insiders and citizens alike saw it as a turning point, a moment when the culture of careless insults and dismissive remarks in politics was finally being challenged. Karoline Leavitt, once known primarily for her sharp humor and fearless press briefings, emerged from the controversy with a changed perspective. The experience had humbled her and forced a re-evaluation of how her words affected others, not just in politics, but in everyday life. She began to speak publicly about the importance of thoughtful communication, emphasizing that humor should never come at the expense of respect. Karoline's apology to Jasmine Crockett became a defining moment in her career, signaling a shift toward greater accountability among political figures. For Jasmine Crockett, the ordeal was both painful and empowering. Throughout the trial, she had maintained her dignity and professionalism, refusing to let the controversy distract her from her work in Congress. The support she received from her family, especially her father's heartfelt testimony, strengthened her resolve. Jasmine's message was clear: respect and civility are essential in politics. She continued to advocate for policies that uplift marginalized communities and called on her colleagues to foster a culture of mutual respect, even amid fierce political disagreement. The story also resonated deeply with many Americans who had grown weary of the hostile tone often found in political discourse. It reminded people that behind every public figure is a person with feelings, family, and a story. Importantly, the case illustrated that power comes with responsibility. Leaders and influencers must recognize that their words have consequences, sometimes far beyond what they intend. In classrooms, workplaces, and social media platforms, the story was cited as an example of how to handle conflict with dignity and how one moment of quiet strength, like Jasmine's father's testimony, can change the course of events. The legacy of this case is a reminder that respect should never be optional. It is the foundation of trust, cooperation, and progress in any society. Karoline and Jasmine's story became a symbol of change, showing that even in a polarized political environment, it is possible to find common ground through empathy and understanding. And so, the lesson learned was simple yet profound: words matter. They can harm or heal, divide or unite. Those who hold power must wield their voices carefully. Sometimes, all it takes is one person willing to stand up calmly and honestly to shift the tide. Sometimes, that person is a father speaking quietly in a courtroom, reminding everyone what truly matters.